Hello lads, and welcome to this week's episode of Mob Mentality, where we tackle the issue of some devilish serial killers. Last time, what did we do? Last time we were talking about the truth behind Vsauce, and unfortunately, at the end of that episode, finding out the truth did in fact result in my death. But luckily, I was admitted to some of the top surgeons in the NHS, and due to their professionalism, I managed to make a full recovery. So today, we're going to be tackling the Weetabix, everything that's going on, as you've seen in the title. And also this week should be better because I do actually have a script. I've prepared better, and I think this theory is a lot better. Seriously, this shit, okay? By the time you get to the end of this video, there are layers, alright? You think there's one layer, and then another layer unfolds underneath it. And you find a third layer, and then that layer reveals not to be a layer, but there's 5 other layers. I'm already off the script, I'm not reading it properly. Okay, so today we're going to be finding out who exactly are fighting over the rights of one of the most iconic cereals in the world. And perhaps we'll find out exactly who the quirky character is behind the greatest conflict known to man, the Weetabix Civil War. We all know about Weetabix. It's literally, if you're in the UK, it's literally all over the place. And it's even outside of the UK. It's one of the few cereals that has truly been able to transcend the national boundaries of our nation. But you know what I mean? It just seems like everyone is just infatuated with how the cold, milky wheat flows through your throat. The taste, as long as you got milk, preferably hot. To be honest, I never really got the appeal of Weetabix. I'm more of a Special K kind of guy. And I know what you're all saying, yeah? Oh, Mom, Special K is for women. Special K is not for women, alright? Do you understand how embarrassing it was when I'd eat Special K and I turn around and there's one lucky Special K fan will win a one-piece swimming suit, so just join our competition. It was embarrassing, man. All the cool kids at school, yeah, they all ate Weetabix and they were all making fun of me. Well, enough is enough. Today, we're finding out exactly what Weetabix is hiding. And Weetabix is hiding a lot, yeah. So buckle up, yeah, and prepare today's episode where I finally prove that eating Special K does not make me gay. Weetabix in the UK is sold by the company Weetabix Limited. Yeah, that's fucking originality at its best, yeah. And they produce their Weetabix in Burton Latimer near Kettering, a place famed for their football club who plays in the Southern League Premier Division Central. Woo. And also for spawning James Acaster, who I hear is a pretty funny fellow. So their website though says that the company Weetabix was founded in 1932. However, a quick look at the Wikipedia page reveals that Weetabix, the product, was made in sometime in the mid 1920s. So if the company was founded after the product was made, well, what does that mean? Does Weetabix not even invent Weetabix? Yeah, they did. But their website seems hell-bent on trying to hide the actual beginning of Weetabix. So if we were to go back in time and explore the real history, we'd find out all the dark truths behind their spawning. And their roots run far deeper. To know the truth behind Weetabix's early years, you must take a trip to Sydney in Australia and follow the story of a man known only as Benison Osborne, because that's his name. Australia before Weetabix was a dark place. This is Australia we're talking about, the worst place to live in the world. A country that was covered by scorching desert and was filled to the brim with criminals and creatures that could kill you in 300 different ways just with their bare fists. It takes, with all of this going on, it takes quite a wily character to call this place home. To Benison Osborne. Ooh, what a transition. This young entrepreneur was set loose on the streets of Sydney, preparing to take the city by storm. By the 1920s, he had become enraptured by the idea of founding Weetabix, but there was a company that stood in his way. The Sanatorium Health Food Company. Founded in 1898, Sanatorium was a religious company dedicated to the ideas of health food. In fact, their flagship product, Granos, was a tasteless dry wheat product that they sold to millions of Australians across Australia. I would never eat tasteless dry product. That's why I eat Weetabix. No. Sanatorium by 1920 had become a well-entrenched company in the Australian market, and for Osborne to stand a chance against such a behemoth, he'd need a miracle of a product. Was called Cocoa Puff. No, Weetabix. It was called Weetabix. Out to market Weetabix. There's actually something flying in my... Setting out to market it as a more palatable form of Granos, Weetabix took the South by storm, or Weet-bix as it's called in Australia. Hundreds of thousands of Aussies fled from the bland Granos to the slightly less bland Weetabix, and people in the South were starting to take notice of this Benison Osborne character. He was given the financial backing he needed by Arthur Shannon, and he was joined by his best friend, his best buddy, his partner in crime, Malcolm Ian McFarlane, as his marketing director. He took on a marketing role. These three musketeers, the triumvirate, better than Caesar, Pompey and Crassus. This is the real triumvirate, Step down, Romans. We've got Osborne, McFarlane and Shannon in town. The Weetabix crew. You know how it is. With Osborne's ingenuity, Shannon's finances and McFarlane's charisma, they were prepared to take over Australia. And by 1928, they had reached the highest peak their company had ever gotten, servicing millions of customers across the nation. Peak would not last long. With all the great achievements they made, they did not only attract powerful allies, but they also caught the attention and the ire of deadly enemies. Osborne displayed brilliance. Osborne displayed great brilliance in raising Weet-bix to the powerhouse it was, but his one biggest mistake would prove to be his most fatal. He forgot about Sanatorium. The company that had made Granos were declining rapidly through this period thanks to the massiveness of their competitors, and they didn't know who to blame. Sanatorium were on their last legs, so trying to find out the reasoning, they stumbled across this Osborne guy, this little spunky lad who took to the streets of Sydney selling their product only way better, and they would not stand for this. Furious, they decided that there was one thing that they could do. In October of 1928, Sanatorium declared war on Weetabix. Despite their successes, Osborne, Shannon and McFarlane were not prepared whatsoever for this type of commercial conflict of such epic proportions. Sanatorium had fallen far, don't get me wrong, but there was still a behemoth in comparison to the Weetabix crew. They had 30 years to build their company, and they had finances the likes of which Weetabix had never seen before. And they had so much influence, they had so much experience in this type of political and company espionage. In fact, they've spent literally their entire history trying to evade tax. They've been fighting the Australian government in order so that they don't have to pay any taxes. They were fully prepared for this type of lowbrow, undercut, sort of gang warfare. And it wasn't long until this sort of pressure caused the triumvirate to start to fracture. Shannon, one of the biggest pillars of the company, turned traitor and sold the Weetabix rights to Sanatorium. Osborne and McFarlane had been betrayed. By now, it would have been excusable if Osborne simply gave up. He's faced with such a powerful opposition, and he's no longer even able to sell his own food in his own country. Like, imagine what sort of devastation that would do to the morale of a normal man. But Osborne was no normal man. He would not give up the fight against his harshest enemy. The war was still raging, and in order to get back in it, Osborne and McFarlane came up with a brilliant idea. Yes, sure, Sanatorium held the rights to Weetabix in Australia. If they moved country, they could still sell Weetabix. So off they popped along the border to New Zealand, because McFarlane was from New Zealand, and they just started selling Weetabix again. Happy as Larry. Oh, come all the Kiwis. We can just sell Weetabix to Weetabix party, raise the roof, and everyone was happy for like a month or two, because unfortunately the backstabber Shannon was back again. Because technically Shannon still provided them financial backing, which meant technically he still held the rights to their Weetabix company, which meant technically he could still sell them out. And that seems like it's his speciality, selling out the company. So obviously by this point, Shannon, with his new best mates in Sanatorium, sold the rights to Sanatorium in New Zealand. Now they had Australia and New Zealand in their empire, and fearing their might, Osborne and McFarlane switched country again, this time to South Africa, but it never really took on in South Africa as much as it did in New Zealand, so they sold the rights yet again, this time to a company called Bokomo, and finally they touched down in England, represent, and in order to not confuse it with the Weet-bix sold in Australia, they named their new product Weetabix, and they named their new company Weetabix Limited. The rest of the story is history. Weetabix Limited took firm hold of Great Britain, becoming one of the top cereals sold in the country, eventually spreading to Canada in 1967 and the United States in 1968, after Osborne set off on a quest to the New World to spread civilization. McFarlane eventually left the company to pursue other business ventures too, which left the situation Weetabix Limited in Britain under the control of Frank George, the person who originally sold them the factory that they used in Burton Latimer in Kettering, as long as they gave him a position on their board of directors, which he did get, and now he became their CEO, which began a reign of the George dynasty that spanned 70 years. 70 years, bringing unfettered control over the Weetabix Limited name. So that brings us to the modern year, 2019, and hostilities between Weetabix Limited, who runs the Weetabix racket in the US, the UK and Canada, and Sanitarium, who own turf in Australia, New Zealand, and ever since Bokomo pledged their allegiance to them, South Africa. And the hostilities between them remain as hot as ever. One of the most recent battles took place in Christchurch, New Zealand in June of 2017, where 300 boxes of British Weetabix touched down in the port of Christchurch and was shipped to a specialty shop owner. Furious that their territory was being infringed on, Sanitarium attacked. 38 people lost their lives in the following confrontation, with the milky, mushy Weetabix of the dead staining the ground of that fair city. To this day, the Weetabix Battle of Christchurch remains the second highest death toll in Christchurch. Oh, that's not. And cut. So we've looked at the history of one of the sides in the Weetabix War, Weetabix Limited, the underdog, you know what I mean, the perennial underdog. But we haven't looked at the ominous backstory of Sanitarium, and things started to get a little bit crazy when we look at their history. Like, if you don't want people like knocking on your door, please turn this video off now, because we are at risk, alright? If you're afraid, stop the video now, because what you're about to witness, ladies and gentlemen, is not for the faint of heart, alright? It's for the hearted of people who eat Weetabix, am I right? I bring to you the real history behind Sanitarium. Sanitarium was founded in the late 1890s by a spunky young lad named Edward Halsey. This dude has some striking resemblances with Benson Osborne, our guy. Both of them set up in Sydney. Both of them wanted to sell their wheat-based products to the nation with pretty similar levels of success. But you start to see differences when you look at their backgrounds, because while Benson Osborne was an Australian by birth, Edward Halsey was not an Australian by birth. He was an American. He was working, before he moved to Sydney, he was working in Battle Creek Sanitarium in Michigan. Now this is probably the place where you got the idea of making a series, because the person who ran Battle Creek Sanitarium, and if you're afraid, please turn off this thing now, because the person who ran Battle Creek Sanitarium was none other than John Harvey Kellogg, co-founder of Nestle. No, it's Kellogg's, obviously. Are you dumb? It is Kellogg's.
Oh, cut off.
What the fuck? Like, seriously, what the fuck? Kellogg's and Weetabix are meant to be two completely separate entities. They're run by two completely separate companies, although Weetabix is owned by Post Holdings these days, which I assume has nothing to do with this whatsoever. But it appears now that the founder of Sanitarium in Australia was directly inspired by the founder and the runner and the owner of Battle Creek Sanitarium in Michigan, John Harvey Kellogg. Like, this dude, like, who was like one of the two Kellogg brothers, the other being Will Keith Kellogg, who was actually he was considered really the founder of Kellogg's, but his brother also created a lot of cereals. Like John Harvey, unlike his brother, John Harvey was far more interested in health, much like the Sanitarium in Australia. And much like the Sanitarium in Australia, John Harvey was himself a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Look at this dude, alright, come in. John Harvey Kellogg, this fucking weird prick. Like, what is he doing? He's meant to be running Kellogg's, not Weetabix. Why is he in our story? Well, it's all revealed here. Here's this thing, part of the series on Seventh-day Adventist Church. Now, the Seventh-day Adventists, right? Oh, bring that back. Let me be in there. I've got a little bit of charming charisma. But what the thing is, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, they are basically they're kind of like Protestants, but they split off. And the way that they differ from Protestants mainly is that they believe the second coming of Jesus Christ, as told by the three angels' message, is imminent. They're saying that Jesus Christ is going to come down and smite all the sinners. The rapture is going to begin. We're going to get raptured. So this is what he believes in, and in fact, he's one of the people who started a schism in this group. He got disfellowed, which basically means he was excommunicated from his religious clique by the main dude. What was the name? I think it was E. White. Let me see. Pantheism Crisis. In fact, he got disfellowed, and it was a result of Mrs. White, yeah, E.S. White. She was like the person, I've read about her, she's got like 2,000 visions from God, alright? And in fact her son was the person who inspired Edward Halsey to move to Australia and start the sanitarium in Australia. So there's all these little things, like Edward Halsey is directly inspired by sanitarium, by this dude and by this religion. And if you don't believe that, alright, let me just explain to you exactly why J.H. Kellogg is directly responsible for the sanitarium in Australia. Firstly, yeah, let's see. Like, if you believe that Halsey and Kellogg are not in cahoots, listen to this, alright? Halsey went to Australia and he was selling his product known as Granos, which we discussed before. It's the forerunner, or like the predecessor of the far superior Weetabix. And he created this, like everyone thought independently, but J.H. Kellogg obviously made a lot of cereals himself, many cereals, but one that I noticed that he also created is called Granos. He invented Granos as well, and both versions of Granos were invented in 1898. What's the likelihood? What's the likelihood that two sanitariums both invented the same food product the exact same year? If you're still not convinced, if you're still not completely convinced, J.H. Kellogg literally invented the word sanitarium. It wasn't a thing before he said it. He changed a few words. Without Kellogg, sanitarium wouldn't have been a word. So, what do you think? If you think they're not in cahoots, that must mean that while Halsey was in Battle Creek, he didn't talk with J.H. Kellogg at all. When he went to Australia, he invented Granos completely independently to the Granos that was invented in the place he lived in for like his whole life. The exact same year that other Granos was invented, and that he also came up with the word sanitarium completely independently. Or do you think it's more likely that Kellogg was heavily involved in the foundation of Sanitarium Australia, and that the Weetabix sold to half the world is a direct cause of this dude trying to spread his legacy across the planet? So, if Kellogg's is allied with Sanitarium in Australia, what does that mean for our Weetabix War? Does that mean that we thought that Weetabix Limited probably had the upper hand against Sanitarium because they had a lot better countries and a lot better business going on. But does this mean that Kellogg's this massive corporation is on the side of Sanitarium? No, it doesn't, because Kellogg's was run by by John's brother Will. And Will was like feuding with John his whole life, so it's unlikely that J.H. Kellogg really influenced Kellogg's, the company, that much. So for J.H. Kellogg to continue his legacy, he shifted his attention to the cereal that was made in Australia. Alright, and this is where we really have to focus on John Harvey Kellogg as a person, because this guy is fucking weird, right? So, we all know about his religion, we all know about his passion of making healthy food and stuff, but why is it that he wanted to make all of this? Because like, this stuff isn't really his passion, you know what I mean? This is his job. You do stuff like this as a job, you know what I mean? Like, oh look, making cereals is what's making me money, I'm gonna do that. But it says here, he was a massive fan of health and getting rid of germs and all these theories, alright? He's also a fan of racism, if you know what I mean. Like, I think that Race Betterment Foundation, he founded the Race Betterment Foundation along with Ivan Fisher, who I've learned about. Ivan Fisher is one of the first celebrity economists ever, and that dude was heavily inspired by J.H. Kellogg, alright? And he was he along with J.H. Kellogg were major advocates for eugenics and segregation. So I don't know, I don't think I'm a fan of that. I'm just saying, I think people should get along. But another thing which he was a much bigger fan of was health, alright? He hated tobacco, drugs and beer. He thought it degraded everyone. He thought beer and alcohol should never be used under any circumstances. He, one of the weirder things he was into was masturbation prevention. In fact, this dude is one of the biggest reasons why so many Americans are circumcised these days, because he thinks it's a cure for masturbation. In fact, his book Plain Facts, which is 356 pages long, which I've read all I sort of skim read it. It's all weird. He's like talking about, he calls masturbation self-abuse. Alright. If you think, okay, circumcision, that's not too bad. Maybe applying carbolic acid to a young woman's clitoris. Yeah, that's a bit weird. You know what I mean? Without anesthetic. Because he thought the pain and the soreness that they both sexes would feel for weeks would remind them not to masturbate. This dude was mutilating young children. Like, little boys. He was an advocate for circumcising young boys to curb masturbation. This dude is fucking twisted. And he believes in hydropathy, which, I mean, I'm a fan of water, yeah? I'm a hydro homie, but this dude takes it one step too far in my opinion. He believes that, like, water will heal everything. Like, oh, just walk outside. He's the type of guy who's like, oh yeah, walk outside, breathe fresh air, do all that sort of stuff, drink water. Yeah, that will cure your tuberculosis. Which he actually said to someone, alright? He said that his cereal would cure their tuberculosis, which is ironic because he later died of tuberculosis and couldn't cure himself with his own cereal. So, ethically owned, 1-0 to the lads, am I right? But no, this dude evidently isn't really in it for the cereal. So you're starting to think, maybe he's using his cereal as a guise. Maybe he's using his cereal as a guise to try and maybe enforce his religious and biological doctrine upon the planet, you know what I mean? Holy shit, like actually coming. I was joking with what I said before, but it says here, it's Kellogg's statement in 1916, wait, go out. Kellogg's statement in 1916 about his food company sheds light on his general motivations. I desire to make clear that the food business I have been carrying on is a part of my general scheme to propagate the ideas of health and biological living. Otherwise, I should not have engaged in it as a commercial enterprise, but I have carried it on as a part of the general philanthropic work which I was engaged. I was joking. I was joking. But it's true. He said it with his own words. His scheme, his massive nefarious plot, is legitimately to use his food business to try and propagate the ideas of health and biological living, to try and propagate his own doctrine. Rebecca, this is terrifying, don't you think?
Yes.
I'm just saying, we could just close the computer and pretend. We could upload this, but we could also just close this computer and play Minecraft or something.
I do like Minecraft.
Like, because I know what we're getting into here. Legitimately, this
It
is
could be the Vsauce thing all over again.
Oh no, I can't die again. My NHS, the NHS can't cover that. They said I shouldn't. Like, luckily they managed to help me last time out, but like, if I die again, I don't know if they can help me. No, I think for the sake of Benson Osborne, we need to get the truth out there. Legitimately, Kellogg was using the food business. He was using his sanitarium. He was using Edward House to try and spread some sort of doctrine. So like, we need to find out what doctrine this is, and if he was successful, if he's already done this, if his doctrine's already been spread across the planet. What, racism? Is it the racism part? Is it the racist part? No, it says it is the health. So like, He's already succeeded in America if you think about the circumcision part, because most Americans are circumcised. Unfortunately, I haven't ever eaten Weetabix and wanted to cut my penis in half. So I don't know if that's what he's trying to get at, or if it's the company sanitarium itself. But there's something weird going on. Like, what is going on? What is happening? No way. All right, come in. This is so this isn't really related too much with J.H. Kellogg, but it's just something I've noticed. This guy, William C. White, who's the son of the prophet Ellen White of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Yeah, this guy, William and his mother Ellen G. White, were called to Australia in 1891. So if you look at this, during his time in Australia, pioneer Adventist Ellen G. White's son William hope he wasn't subbed, convinced Seventh-day Adventist Edward Halsey, a baker at John Harvey Kellogg's Battle Creek Sanitarium, to immigrate to Australia. Why is this all linking up so well? Alright? This is like, legitimately, the Seventh-day Adventists are all over this. Like, if we go on to John Harvey Kellogg, this prick, what is happening here? Why is he, it's like, his religion, he's just pushing it all off to Australia. Now we know that the prophet has gone to Australia. The prophet itself went. So, is he using a cereal as maybe a cover or even a means of spreading the religion? I don't know. Is he spreading the Is he spreading the news of Jesus Christ's imminent second coming? Like, why am I scared of Jesus? Why am I like the fella. You know what I mean? He's done hella nice stuff in his lifetime. I've heard this Jesus guy. I'm alright with Jesus, but why am I scared? Why do they make me scared? And then, like, hold on a second. No. This guy. Post. No, wait, I need to check something. No fucking way. Come in. They had other competitors as well, including C.W. Post, who actually was at the Battle Creek Cemetery. Like, oh my god. He was heavily inspired to found his own food company, Post Holdings. Dude, I mentioned that before. International ownership. A family-owned business until 2003. This is on the Weetabix Limited website. Weetabix Food Company is now a subsidiary of Post Holdings. So, what the fuck? Alright. J.H. Kellogg's best friend, his company now owns Weetabix Limited. The good guys, the perennial underdogs. This is like Hydra. This is like Hydra infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D. all over again, but it's with the Weetabix War. What does this mean? Maybe C.W. Kellogg, maybe he wasn't friends with him. Maybe he's just doing this maybe to get back at him. Alright, maybe, I don't know, maybe this is just something, we're just like pulling stuff out of our arse or something. Let's just check something. Oh no. When Kellogg died in 1943 in Battle Creek, Michigan, he was buried in the Oak Hill Cemetery in Battle Creek, Michigan. Among others buried there are his parents, his brother W.K. Kellogg, his brother's wife, James and Ellen White, the two prophets of the Adventist Church, Uriah Smith, a Seventh-day Adventist author, Sojourner Truth, a Seventh-day Adventist activist, and C.W. Post. C.W. Post was buried in the same place as all of these Adventists, as like all the prophets. He was buried in the same place as J.H. Kellogg. And the company he founded has now bought out Weetabix Limited. This might be it. This might be the end. I thought we could save Bennis and Osborne's legacy, but Sanitarium, whether it be the one in Australia or the one run by J.H. Kellogg, apparently these guys have taken over. They own all the breakfast in the world. Because, isn't it ironic, Rebecca? They claim if you eat Weetabix, you'll be full of energy. You'll be powerful, the most powerful human in the world. If everyone's the most powerful human in the world, no one will be. To think it all started off as one baker's tale, or two really. It was Edward Housen and Benison Osborne. They just wanted to have their own, you know what I mean? They wanted to have their own, like, follow their careers. But the religion has come in and has corrupted it all, and now Weetabix is a source of just propaganda. I'm not even sure. Like, this fellow, John Harvey Kellogg, he might be dead, but his stain he's left behind, it's unreplaceable, it's irreplaceable. You can't get rid of it, like, no matter how hard we try. But then again, it's just Weetabix. To think that I eat special cake, like, what have I been doing? I've been funding this madman, this maniac. No, I'm seriously getting ticked off. I am getting ticked off right now with J.H. Kellogg. I guess this is it. This is the end of this episode of My Mentality. Hopefully, you never know. We might still have hope. Maybe post-holding is on our side. Maybe they've switched over the years. Maybe Sanitarium have changed their ways. But I know for certain that until Benison Osborne's legacy is erased from this world, I will continue to fight for it. I started this episode off as a hater of Weetabix. But now Weetabix, I know Weetabix need to be saved. Thank you for watching, and thanks for watching.